It is your boy Niner Sickness. I got my boy Shifty there. And this is the new 49ers Weekly Recap Show. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It is your boy Beto at the Niner Sickness Podcast with my boy Kalen at Shifty's 49er Talk. And this is your 49ers Weekly Recap Show. Welcome to the show, everyone. We are entering week 6. We're going to talk about week 5. And here's my boy Kalen. How you doing, my friend?
Oh, man, I am good, Beto. Good to see you again. Really excited to get into this podcast because, we know there's a lot to talk about. Love the new intro as well for the show. Hope everyone enjoys it as well. And great. Happy to be here. It's going to be a great show. I think you're muted, bud.
I got to remember to take it off. Sorry. A lot of positives to talk about against the Carolina Panthers. And unfortunately, a couple of injuries we may have to add in there. And we're going to talk about it more in depth in a few about how much this injuries mean going forward for our San Francisco 49ers. But real quick on the positive side, we'll get this out of the way, Kanan. Let's talk a little bit about Jimmy G and what he did this week. And for those that watch the show that are not big fans of Jimmy, listen, I am more of a Trey Lance fan than Jimmy. I'm ready to move on. I was ready to move on from Jimmy, but it is what it is, man. The everything fell into place the way it did. We are now entering week 6. We are 3-2 on top of the division leaders, and that's because we have Jimmy at quarterback. So whether we like Jimmy or not, we have to be sensible enough to understand, listen, let me put my feelings aside, how I feel particularly about this quarterback, and let me see what he's doing. What he did on Sunday, yes, he had a couple of plays that weren't so good, but for the most part, he did very well, in my opinion. And I'm going to ask Kaden in a second his thoughts. But in my opinion, he was able to move the ball well. He got the ball out of his hand quickly. That throw to Coleman on the sideline was a beautiful throw. He's been throwing it deep a little bit more than usual. So I think things have changed between him and Kyle Shanahan and the way they utilize him back there. So I'm actually excited to see each and every week now to see what Jimmy does. To me, Jimmy didn't lose the game. He might not be the reason why we win games, but he's definitely not the reason why we're losing games so far. And one of the best statistics right now is that he's not turning over the ball. He is not turning over the ball. And you know what? People may say, wow, some of those plays should have been turned. Well, I don't care about should have, would have, could have. Were they turnovers? They were not. And at the end of the day, if they're not turnovers, they're not hurting us. I want to get your thoughts, Kalen, on the Jimmy Garoppolo after a few games, from the Denver game to now the Panthers game. Have you seen growth in Jimmy, in your opinion?
Yeah, big time. I think it's growth. It's also, I think we can't underestimate the fact that, we had planned going into this season for Trey Lance to be the quarterback. And just like you, I was devastated when Trey Lance got injured and is out for the year. I was really excited to see him grow as a player. But facts are that he got hurt and the football season rolls on. We still have a fantastic team. So we have to, move on and accept reality. So with that being said, I think all these players were practicing with, Trey Lance all offseason. We know that Jimmy did not train with any of these guys. And every quarterback has their own tendency, how they move in the pocket. Maybe if they'll run around and try and throw it, maybe if they'll just try and throw it away. So, and also Kyle Shanahan spent the entire offseason coming up with game plans for Trey Lance. We're going to do these RPOs. We're going to, run Trey Lance. And now it's you have to do a complete 180 because Jimmy Garoppolo is quite a very different player from Trey Lance. But so with all that being said, I think it was, the Denver game. Denver, as bad as they have looked offensively, the Denver Broncos have a good defense. And I think we just, ran into a bit of a buzzsaw there with Garoppolo, his first, starting game. But nobody's practiced with the guy all year. The offense wasn't tailored for him. So it is what it is. But moving on to Jimmy's performance on Sunday, I thought it was really solid. As you said, no turnovers. It's 2 games in a row now. But here's the thing with Jimmy. He's never had 3 games in a row without a turnover. So hopefully he can get that streak going. That would be awesome. The other thing, too, is, like you said, a couple of deep shots. We did take a deep shot to Danny Gray. The Panthers had it covered pretty well, but you have to respect the fact that we are taking those shots. And then the 2 big plays that stood out to me, you talked about one of them, that throw to Tevin Coleman. I mean, amazing throw. Jimmy was about to and he took a big hit, a lot of pressure in his face, throws it up. Great catch by Tevin Coleman, too, to come down with the ball, feed inbounds. That was great. George Kittle as well. I think it was the first drive of the game on third down. I think it was 3rd and long, and he throws it to Kittle. And that's the thing that sometimes Jimmy didn't do before, is that when you have a one-on-one matchup, normally good things will happen. If you have guys like Kittle and Debo and Ayuk, it's either going to be a catch or a pass interference or an incomplete. So I think going forward, I do want to see Jimmy take those shots when it's that one-on-one coverage. And we know Kyle can scheme that kind of coverage. So keep taking those shots, taking care of the ball. And overall, the offense definitely looked a lot better against Carolina than what it did even against the Rams. Looked a lot better. So moving the ball consistently, Jeff Wilson Jr. ran very well. But for Jimmy Garoppolo, good game. 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. Love it.
Yeah, exactly, bro. The Niners are starting to get a little bit better with Jimmy. Jimmy started to feel a little bit, getting his feet underneath him. You mentioned the Broncos having a really good defense, in which they do. And then you take the fact that, you know what, whether people think they're excuses or not, so be it. Jimmy didn't have a training camp. Jimmy's a creature of habit. He likes to have everything lined up. And normally he has a whole off season. He has no distraction. He's a quarterback. He's in training camp and so forth. Mini camp this year, no mini camp, no training camp. He didn't know whether he was going to be a Niner. He wasn't going to be a Niner. Where was he going? And he was dealing with the recovery of his shoulder. So technically this game against the Broncos was his first game starting. And he didn't look good. But then you saw the adjustments and the progress to the Rams game. And then you've seen it even more towards Carolina. So again, whether we're fans of Jimmy or not, we need to set our feelings aside. And what's best for the team? The team is 3-2 at the end of the day. Yes, would I rather be 5-0 with Trey Lance at the helm? Of course. But the reality is we're 3-2 on top of our division, I may add. And Jimmy is not hurting us. He's getting better. So let's hope that he stays taken care of. Now, before we move on to our next segment, I wanted you to, since you have that information, Kaylin, please let us know the roster moves that have been made just recently.
Oh, yeah. So just announced. So the 49ers did, in fact, release Marlon Mack from the team, and they signed defensive tackle. It was T.Y. McGill, formerly of the Houston Texans. Now, if any of you guys watched the week 3 preseason game, this guy was wrecking the 49ers in preseason. He was one of the guys who really stood out to me. From what I've read very briefly, it sounds like he maybe got a ankle sprain injury, and then so he ended up getting cut by the Texans. I think he ended up getting waived by the Vikings because of the injury too. But we've picked him up. Hopefully he's feeling better. I'd be curious to see what this means. I mean, because maybe it's not a huge deal, but maybe it's to look into certain things. It could mean that maybe TDP is almost coming back if we're willing to let go of a guy like Marlon Mack. But could it also mean that maybe Eric Armstead or Javon Kinlaw might be out for a little while longer than we expect? So that remains to be seen. But I do like what T.Y. McGill did in that preseason game. I'll be honest, outside of that, I don't really know the guy. But you have to like how these guys perform on the defensive line when they're coached by Chris Kasarik and in this D'Amico Ryan defense, which is, the best in the NFL as far as I'm concerned. So it'll be interesting to see how he develops.
Yeah, I agree. I think Marlon exiting the Niners is a little bit of Tevin Coleman playing as good as he did, being a familiar face, knowing this offense all well. He knows Kyle Shanahan's offense like the back of his hand, and he played very, very well. He caught the ball for a touchdown, I believe, and he ran it in for a touchdown, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, he was all over the place. So, and the TDP might be on his way back as well. And then adding a D tackle, we don't know what's going on with Javon Kinlaw. He has a chronic pain. Uh, Even if he does come back, how long can he play? Is he going to miss time and here back and forth? And I do got to give credit where credit is due. Kevin Givens and um, Rich, I can help me out here. Richway,
Son Ridgeway.
Sean Ridgeway have been playing very good football in the middle. They've been plugging up that middle. I mean, teams are only running like 3.3 yards per carry against this defense. So I'm very excited to see that. But it never hurts to add extra ammunition to the hardware. So even if he can't play right away, I think because we have so many rotational players, we have the luxury of allowing him to recover. And if he's anything like he was in preseason against us, we might have found a good pickup. Who knows? Only time will tell. We'll see. But I know he didn't cost us much, so it's something that you always want to, take a chance on. So I appreciate you bringing us up to date with the roster moves, Kaylin. So I also want to talk about the 49ers offensive line. Jalen Moore had a lot of help, especially by Warner. Charlie Warner was there. Kittle was helping him out. But there's a particular player that I want to talk about. His name is Aaron Banks. I don't know about you guys, and I'm not comparing him to Tomlinson, but I don't know, man. Just his way of playing so far, and it's a small sample size, but he made me forget about Tomlinson, Lincoln Tomlinson. Like, I forgot about him because Aaron Banks has been playing so well, and I know that when we drafted him with a second overall pick in the second round, we were like, what are the Niners thinking? He's a big body. Did the Niners mess up? And kudos to John Lynch. Kudos to the offensive line coach and Kyle Shanahan, and always bringing in players that they can develop and be great replacements for those that are going to ask for more money. Because I did not feel that we should have paid Tomlinson. I'm not saying he didn't deserve his bag. Good for him. He got his bag with the Jets, and great for him. But we're not missing a beat with a much cheaper Aaron Banks. And then at center, I don't know. I want to get your thoughts, Keelan, on these individual 5 pieces of the offensive line. At center, Jalen Brendo hasn't been playing too bad. Now, at the right guard, we've been having a little bit of musical chairs with Spencer Buford and Daniel Brunskill. But that's just, I think, we're waiting for Spencer Buford to get a little bit better. He is a rookie. And then Mike McClinchy's been holding his own for the most part. So I want to get your thoughts, Kaylin, on all 5 offensive linemen from left to right, and your thoughts on their process so far.
I mean, I think the offensive line has been pretty good. Now, if you were to ask the average NFL fan, maybe who's not a 49er fan, and if I called out the names Jalen Moore, Aaron Banks, Jake Brendel, Spencer Burford, Mike McGlinchey, I think they maybe would remember McGlinchey being a first-round pick. That's about it. Like, they'd be like, I don't know any of these guys, but they're playing well. So shout out to the players, of course, putting in the work, putting in the time to get better. Shout out to the coaching staff, the offensive line coach. They're playing well. But if we start from left, so Jalen Moore, he did give up the sack to Brian Burns, but that is nothing to be ashamed about. Brian Burns is a fantastic pass rusher. And overall, beyond that, we didn't hear Jalen Moore's name called that much. And that's a good thing for an offensive lineman. If you're an offensive lineman, you basically want to be incognito. You don't want your name called, because if you get your name called, more often than not, it's for a penalty or you gave up a sack. But I thought Jalen Moore played pretty darn well. He did need some help. And I think that's going to be an ongoing thing until Trent Williams is back because, Jalen Moore is, he's still young. It's his second year, and he's playing a position that I don't think he really played a lot. So overall, I think, and then you look at Aaron Banks, I think he's been really good. As you said, I've forgotten about Tomlinson, and also I agree that Tomlinson, he deserved the money. I'm very happy at this point that we didn't pay Tomlinson. Simply because Banks has been very solid in this place, and people kind of forget too when we brought in Lake and Tomlinson, he was a first round bust for Detroit. We traded like a 5th round or 6th round pick for him, and and then I think it was through our scheme, like it being a great fit. And great coaching that he turned into a very solid player for us. But agree, kind of forgotten about Tomlinson. Banks is doing very solid. Brendel, I think he's been okay. There was that one play that we threw the ball and it went to Kittle. He dragged like 5 defenders down to the 1 yard line. It was actually Brendel who was the illegal man downfield. But I mean, beyond that, I think the offensive line's been pretty solid. Jimmy hasn't been sacked that much. I don't think he was sacked against the Rams, if I'm not mistaken. And then against the Panthers, he was sacked twice. But I mean, 2 sacks in 2 games that's pretty darn good blocking right there. So looking at Burford, then I think it was either Denver or it was against the Rams, where I know he had a couple of holding calls against him. But you'll have that as a rookie, and they're rotating in Daniel Brunskill. I think with Brunskill, they're bringing him back slowly, and they might consider, depending on how well Jake Brendel keeps playing, they might consider Brunskill at center. But and then McGlinchey's been solid, very solid at right tackle. So I think all these guys are getting that chemistry. They're playing more. They're getting a ton of snaps. And then I think this offensive line, I mean, you have to think it's going to be even a lot better than when the silverback, Trent Williams, the best left tackle in football, when he comes back, then I think this offensive line is going to be performing at an elite level. So I'm very, very impressed, not only with the pass blocking too, but let's not forget the run blocking and some great blocks by the tight ends, Kittle and Werner. But Jeff Wilson Jr. was over 7 yards a carry, 17 rushes, 120 yards, I think. So, and a touchdown, but great performance by the offensive line. You have, even though Jimmy did take a couple hits, but overall we have to be happy.
Yeah, whenever you play against the Rams and you only give up 5 pressures, and one of those pressures, it was actually 4. One of those pressures was a given when nobody touched AD, and that was Spencer Burford's mistake. He kind of helped out the center, and he was kind of protecting air, and he just let the best defensive tackle go by. So they really had 4 pressures, but technically 5, no sacks. And then against the Carolina Panthers, I believe they only gave up 2 sacks in that game. And this is a young offensive line. Now, for those that are watching the show and they're like, yeah, but our offensive line's still this and still that, I guarantee you, Ram fans will take our players in a jiffy because their players gave up 7 sacks to us, and they gave up 6 sacks to the Cowboys. So their offensive line is atrocious. They're hurting over there. Kyle Shanahan is scheming this offensive line. We're opening up lanes. Jeff Wilson Jr., as Killian said, had a career day on Sunday, rushing for 120 yards. And these lanes were opened up by Aaron Banks and Warner and Kittle and everyone in there. So we could be worse placed. We're 3-2 with a couple of juggling in the offensive line. And then we done this without our best left tackle. Like you said, when he comes back, remember, Aaron Banks is getting experience. Jalen Moore is getting experience. I just forgot his name. Spencer Burford.
And Burford.
Yeah, they're getting experience. McClinch is getting better. And now you bring in the silverback, and I believe he'll be back after the bye. This offense should be humming, and we should be good, man. So moving on to the defensive side, we lost, unfortunately, Bosa to a groin. Although I don't know what the severity of it. I hope it's not as bad. I think they were very cautious with him when they found, because I think it was kind of tightening up on him prior to the game, and he kind of went for it, and he's like, no, this is not working. And normally they just ruled him out. They just took him out. And by the way, we got 6 sacks while he was out of the lineup. That's how good our D line. Now, do I want Bosa in there? Of course, he's a game changer. But we have the rotation there if we have to give him a day or two of rest. The one that I want to ask you, Kaylin, on the Bosa issue, but I also want to ask on losing Emmanuel Mosley for the year. Now, that one's a heartbreaker. This kid was on pace to make his money. He was going after the bag, rightfully so. And this guy's been playing lights out. Nowhere near our acquisition of Mooney. I love this, and we'll talk about that in a minute because I really love this free agent that we brought in. But Emmanuel Mosley was playing well, good football. I want to ask you, Kaylin, what's your thoughts on losing him? What are your thoughts on who can replace him? Go ahead, Kaylin.
Yeah, man, it's devastating, for and it seems like every week we're losing a big part of the team, to an injury, and hopefully that stops now. But yeah, Mosley, I thought it's a big loss, and we can't underestimate that one bit because for me, when I watching the games this year compared to last year is almost a 180 because this year now I just have so much confidence in the secondary that with Mooney Ward, with Emmanuel Mosley, Hufanga, Tashawn Gibson's been a great acquisition, and I just have so much confidence in those guys. When the ball's getting thrown deep, I'm like, compared to watching the Raider game last night, the Raider DBs couldn't they couldn't cover nothing. So I have so much confidence, and now that's going to go away a little bit because Mosley's obviously out for the year. Now the question then becomes is how do we replace him? To me, when it comes against the Atlanta Falcons this Sunday, it's probably going to be Ambry Thomas, I would imagine, who plays a lot of the snaps on the outside. And then what we'll see is maybe we'll see a little bit of Jason Verrett this Sunday. I don't think we'll see too much, but I think maybe we'll see a little bit. Get him up to speed, that playing NFL speed. And then ideally, Verrett can come back for like the week after, because that's a big one against Kansas City at home. And we saw the Kansas City offense. They can move the football very, very quickly and very well. So that's my kind of hope initially. There's definitely some options that we could maybe look to bring in as well. Our old friend, Dante Johnson, he's going to be around there. I think John Lynch at this point has him on like speed dial,
Well,
Dante.
he's on the
But
roster. He's on the practice squad right now.
yeah, they might call him up to like the 53-man roster. It might be who knows? Maybe we call Denard to try and get just some familiar faces. The other possibilities are some trades. I kind of threw out a couple of trade possibilities in a video yesterday. Maybe we bring back the familiar face, Akello Witherspoon. I don't know. I doubt it. I think we've kind of just moved on from him. But the Steelers are not playing well. I like Desmond King from the Texans, but we'll see. But I think internally we still have some really good options. And at the end of the day, that just speaks, as much as you can criticize, John Lynch in the front office for certain things, and there's definitely things to criticize, you have to respect the fact that we've lost our starting quarterback, our starting left tackle, our starting running back. We didn't have our star tight end for a number of games. We're losing one of our starting cornerbacks, lost one of our starting linebackers, lost our 2 starting defensive tackles. And guess what? The team is still winning. The team is still looking great. And that just speaks to the depth. So yeah, it's the defense has played well, but it sucks for Mosley. I mean, from a selfish standpoint, it sucks because it's going to hurt the team. It's going to hurt the how well the defense is going to play. But you feel really, really bad for him because he's a young guy. I think he's like 25 or 26, and he was going to get a huge contract. And he earns it. He deserves it. But maybe we'll see what happens now. But yeah, I feel really bad for Mosley.
Yeah, I agree. Now, again, I don't wish injuries upon no one. I think injuries suck, rightfully so. because you like to watch the best players on the field no matter which team they're playing for, but particularly the ones that are playing for the red and gold. Now that he's hurt, and again, I don't wish to hurt on no one, it might benefit the 49ers a bit. And why I say that is because now they might be able to sign him to longer term because he may not be seeked out by other teams now because he's not going to play for the rest of the year. Do we get him back on a 1 year contract, prove it deal? If he wants to go elsewhere, so we have, there's so many things, directions we can go. But I wanted to mention this, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this, Keelan. There's a particular corner that I would like to play on the outside, and he hasn't played on the outside for the 49ers yet. And his name is Samuel Womack the third or second. This kid is special. People say, well, he don't play on the outside. He's played tons on the outside in college. I don't know what people get. He hasn't played on the outside. He's a great nickel corner, but we've been playing Dino in the nickel. Why not try to see what Samuel Womack can do on the outside opposite of Mooney? Now, Jason Verrett and Samuel Mo, I think that they're about the same height. They're the same height, same kind of build. I just like the instincts of one Samuel Womack, and sometimes you don't know what you have until you give them the opportunity. This is why starters hate getting hurt because you never know if you can get your job back. Civic A, Alex Smith, he got hurt. People say you don't lose your job to injuries. Well, that's not necessarily true anymore. Whenever you lose your spot and someone else shines behind you, then the coaches have a big old thing to deal with. Like, oh my goodness. So I would like to see him out there, but I think you're right. I think it'll be Avery Thomas for the most part. They may kind of experiment with Samuel Womack or Demo on a little bit on the outside, depending how Emery Thomas does. If he does well, then no problem. But one thing about Emery Thomas, he does seem to struggle at times. So let's see what he can do, and let's see if he can take advantage of this opportunity now that Emmanuel Mosley is out. But having Mooney on the other side, I mean, I don't know. I want to talk about him right now, and I want to get your thoughts on him particularly. Has he been the best corner in a while for the San Francisco 49ers? Because I believe he's at the top 3 or top 5 against the run and against the pass. I mean, this guy can tackle. This guy can cover. We've been playing a lot of coverage scheme. Where you notice we don't play the cover 4. You know that we're playing a lot of cover 6. What they like to call the what was the name of that coach that is hanging out with us? He was the head coach of the Broncos.
Fangio?
They call it the Fangio 6 scheme. That's what we've been playing a lot on defense. Give me your thoughts on Mooney and the acquisition of him and what you think about him so far.
Yeah, I think like the closest corner. I mean, Sherman in 2019 was pretty good, but Mooney Ward is definitely a lot more athletic than Richard Sherman for sure. Now, I find myself, when I watch the 49er games, there's about 2 or 3 times every game where I'm saying, man, like perfect coverage by Mooney Ward. He breaks up the pass. He's amazing. And he leads the league in pass defenses, which is great. He has, of course, the 1 interception, and he almost had one against Carolina too. But this guy, he might be the best free agent acquisition of like anyone in the NFL this offseason.
Yep.
Like he's been shut down, locked down. Teams are still targeting him, but they're not having much success, honestly. Now the Panthers had that one big play. Baker Mayfield threw it to Robbie Anderson. The coverage on that play was still excellent. Like we're talking like a few inches here, different. Like his hand almost tipped it away. He's been fantastic, and he's a huge thing. And of course, Hufanga, but, focusing on Mooney Ward here, he's been phenomenal. We heard John Lynch after the game, hey, you're worth every penny. And that's absolutely true. Because I think we got him on a pretty decent deal. Like he's making good money, which he deserves, of course. But it's not like he's making astronomical money. It's not like he's making 30 million a
He's
year,
not
nothing
making
like that.
Jackson money
So
over there with the Chargers. Sorry to interrupt.
yeah, it's not like he's making that kind of money, and he's playing a lot better. I've seen a few Charger games, and even just against the Browns, J.C. Jackson was getting burnt left and right. So yeah, Mooney Ward's been excellent, great pickup, and I would say after Bosa Hufanga, he's been probably the third best defender in my opinion. I think Fred Warner is probably a close Fred Warner and Greenlaw. I'd say Warner would be number 4, but yeah, he's been amazing. It's fun to watch him and great to watch a good cornerback play good football compared to what we saw last year.
Yeah, people are like, I've been talking to a lot of Niner fans, and they're like, man, we've been blitzing more. They're like, and some people, in credit to some Niner fans, they don't know, they're not too knowledgeable of football. They're just fans, and nothing wrong with that. If you love the team, but you don't know too much about football, there's nothing wrong with that. But they were like, our defensive line must not be that good. And I'm like, why do you say that? They're like, because we're blitzing more. I said, no. See, this is where people have the misconception of that. It doesn't mean that you don't have good pass rushers. A lot of teams don't blitz because they don't have great coverage in the back and they don't want to get burned. So they just send off the front four to do the work. And the Niners can do that. But because there's so much confidence in our secondary with Mooney, and then now it was with Emmanuel Mosley, that they were not afraid of getting burned, particularly against the Panthers. They were not afraid of getting burned by Baker Mayfield. Now, he had that one good play against Mooney, but you know what? Jalen Ramsey, which is arguably one of the best corners out there, and that Super Bowl against Cincinnati, got killed against Cincinnati. Corners have bad days. They have bad plays. But if you look at great corners over mediocre corners, they have more better plays than bad plays. And that's what you want from your corner. And that's, if you look at all the plays since Mooney got here, I guarantee you can pick a bunch of them that were good and maybe a few that were not so hot. And that's what you want. You want better plays than bad. And that's what we got. And you're right, Kaylin. I think that he has been the best free agent in the NFL because we just spoke about Jackson over there. They came from New England to the Chargers. They paid him a lot of money. And a lot of Niner fans wanted him. They wanted him over Mooney because they didn't know who Mooney was. They didn't know who Travarius Ward really was. Unless you watch the couple of Chiefs games. But he was doing this, and he's an undrafted free agent with the Chiefs. This kid has battled from the bottom and has worked his way up. He's always had a chip on his shoulder, and he's starting to showing who he is. And I'm glad that he's starting to do that in a Niner uniform. So I'm excited about him. I'm looking forward to see what adjustments they make, D'Amico Ryans makes on the opposite side of him. And this is going to put a little bit more pressure on Travarius Ward because they may be throwing a little bit more. Well, no, actually, no. This might help them because they're going to test the other corner a bit more. So we'll see. They might take away from any initial interceptions for him. So moving on, Kaylin, I want to ask you in your opinion on the Carolina overall game. What did you think overall of that game? At what point of the game did you feel within yourself, this game is ours? I don't care. And then I also want you to speak a little bit on special teams because there were some bad plays, two in particular, where honestly, your kicker should not be the last man trying to tackle a punt returner at full speed. And unfortunately, it hurt us because we lost Robbie Gould. We don't know what the extent of his injury is. We know it's a contusion on his other leg, but that's his planting leg. That's where he plants before he does the kick. So I know I gave you a little bit of too much there, but I want to get your thoughts on the total game and then your thoughts on special teams.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall it was a really good game. I mean, defensively, again, we continue to be really, really good. I mean, we only give up 15 points. And it's funny, like we give up 15 points, and this Niners defense is so good that at this point, that's like, oh, we gave up a lot of points, didn't we? But it's only 15 points. So that's how amazing the defense has been playing. And I was kind of thinking, wow, I feel like the defense, they didn't play their best game by any means, but it's also, we only gave up 15 points. The one thing which I'll say with the defense is, you know, I have to give a bit of a shot. The Carolina's offensive line is pretty good in pass protection. Now, you look at 6 sacks and you're like, wow, they got dominated. But to me, and this is actually, this might contradict a little bit of what you were saying earlier, but this was my thoughts anyways watching the game, was that the defensive line rushing four wasn't, to me, wasn't super effective against the Panthers. Now we were able to blitz because we have those amazing cornerbacks and the amazing secondary. But if you look at the 6 sacks, only two of them were from defensive linemen. Omenahu had one, Drake Jackson had one, but the other 4 sacks were either from DBs or linebackers. So that meant that we did. I felt personally that until we started blitzing a lot more, that Baker actually had decent time back there to throw. So but overall, I mean, great performance by the defense. The offense definitely looked in a better rhythm. If I had to critique one thing, was that we definitely tried to force the ball to Debo a lot. There was 2 or 3 throws where Garoppolo was. It seemed like no matter what else was going on, he was going to be going to Debo regardless of anything. Debo did have a very bad drop, so of course that's not on the quarterback, but um, I think overall the offense played a lot better. The running game looked a lot more consistent, especially as the game went on. Which that's my biggest thing. Look, I love, of course, the big long runs, and Jeff Wilson Jr. had a nice 41-yard run. But I my favorite thing with the running game is when first down you pick up 6 yards. Then it's 2nd and 4. You have 2 downs to only pick up 4 yards. You open up the entire playbook. And as the game went on, we were able to do that. The offense, I liked that they were trying to get Kittle a lot more involved from the get go. And then, Kittle had the fumble, and maybe Shanahan was like, okay, maybe we'll try and get the ball in Debo's hands or Ayuk or, Jawan Jennings. But I thought the offense looked a lot better. The running game was really good. But then you get to the special teams. And holy moly, these special teams. Now, I didn't think our special teams could get worse compared to last year. So I thought last year was really bad, but it's not looking good special teams wise. And specifically, like the field goal unit. We played 5 games. We've already had 2 field goals blocked. One of them returned for a touchdown. The kickoffs, back to back kickoffs, the guy runs it back and gets up to the 50-yard line. The second time, it comes down to our 40-something-year-old kicker who has to stop him, and then he gets hurt and he's out for the game. The kickoff coverage has been a disaster. I don't know why, because I've seen Robbie do it. Maybe it's different weather conditions and a bunch of other factors, but sometimes I just wonder, like, why isn't there either Wishnowski or Robbie? Why can't they just kick the ball through the end zone when it comes to the kickoffs? Let them start at the 25-yard line. I don't know. Maybe they just, again, I don't know what the other factors play into that, but that's really frustrating. Luckily, Ray didn't screw up anything. I mean, with Ray, I don't know about you, but I always kind of hold my breath a little bit when the other team punts it to us. I'm kind of like, just fair catch it, just catch the ball, which is not really what you want, considering we paid decent money to bring him in to be a special teams returner. But he just gives me that feeling that he's going to fumble the ball. So Brian Schneider, the special teams coordinator, he's got to do something. He's got to figure something out with these field goals, because now I've kind of lost a lot of confidence in this team when it comes to field goals. I'm like, just don't get blocked. Just don't get blocked. So he's got to figure it out. If he can't, then Shanahan needs to bring somebody in, whether it's a special teams assistant coordinator or whatever the title might be. But something's got to be figured out, because it's not good enough. Here's the thing: when we play teams like Carolina, you know, other teams like the Seahawks, where we had the field goal block, we're a good enough team that we're still going to win those games. But when we get to the playoffs, you imagine it's January, we're in Philadelphia, and if we have a field goal block in the NFC Championship game, we have to clean this up now before it gets out of hand. We saw what happened to Green Bay. Just
Yep.
ask Green Bay about special teams. And of course, we know we were on the right side of it with the punt block and the Hufanga touchdown, but it's got to get cleaned up. It's not good enough.
Absolutely. And not only, and you make perfect sense about the playoffs, but even the game against Kansas City coming up in 2 weeks, right after this game against Atlanta, again, against the Panthers and against the Seahawks right now, we are a better team. We can recover from that. But you get a blocked on a Kansas City team that has Patrick Mahomes, Kelsey on there. You can be in a lot of world of trouble. And just for your information, for those that are watching, Robbie Gold was the guy that stopped both those runs to the 50-yard line. He tackled. It was both tackles done by Robbie Gold. The second one is the one he got injured in, and you have no business having your kicker being the last man at defense. He should have never got that far. So I have to question our special Burks that we brought in, and all these other players, what they're doing. So they got to do something with special teams quickly because we're getting to the meat and potatoes of the season. So that has to start to be humming because our offense is doing okay. Defense is doing phenomenal, great as expected, but the all facets of the game has to be working. This is a three-facet type of sport. You have to have your offense, your defense, and special teams humming. If one of them is lacking, it can bite you in the rear. And so far, we just been too good over the other teams that we were able to kind of, escape losses. But you don't want to take those chances with the Buccaneers, with Kansas City, with top flight teams like that. You want to be able to take advantage of your three facets of the game. So overall, though, we beat Carolina 37-15. I believe that if it wasn't for those two big gains to the 50-yard line, it would have been less that the defense had to protect because I don't think that Carolina would have gotten deep enough in our side to kick a field goal. When you start at the 50-yard line, you only got to go, 30 yards, 20 something yards to get to the field goal range. So that put a little bit of stress on our defense. But we gave up field goals, not touchdowns, other than that one to McCaffrey in that run. And that happens to the best defenses. Just like we talked earlier about corners giving up plays in here, defense do the same. But overall, we are heading and trending to the right direction. As we come to a close on this chapter of the Panthers, I want to get your prediction on the Atlanta Falcons next week. And then, of course, our next segment, we'll be discussing the outcome of the 49ers and Atlanta game. But I want to get your prediction, Kalen, and 3 keys to winning that game.
All right. This is a good one. So what I'll do is I'm going to predict a 49ers win. I'm not maybe going to predict a score yet, which I would do, but there's a lot of uncertainty, whether it's with Bosa, Gold, some other players. But I think the Niners will probably win, I would guess by 7 to 10 points, but we'll kind of, I'll have to think about the score line in terms of when we find out how the injured players are doing and if they're going to play or not. When it comes to keys to the game against Atlanta, I think something that can always hinder performance is number one, and we just talked at length about it, is we just can't have any stupid mistakes, especially on special teams. We can't throw away points, we can't throw away possessions with carelessness, we can't give the other team great field position, because although going into the season, I thought Atlanta would be a bottom 5 team. They've been playing pretty darn well. Let's give it credit where it's due. Now, look, they're 2-3. They're not a top flight team by any means, but they're a lot better than I thought they were going to be. I think also with Atlanta, it's going to be interesting in terms of their injuries, because Cordarrelle Patterson, they're kind of do-it-all guy. He's out for the game. He's on the IR. Now, the big thing is Kyle Pitts. So Kyle Pitts is a great tight end, young tight end, but very impressive so far. If he misses time, If he misses the game, then I definitely like the 49ers chances even more so. But I think, yeah, number one, just no special teams. It's just a clean game from the special teams, not asking for anything special, but just a decent game. Um, Other things too. Can Jimmy go his third straight game without turning the ball over? Again, when you're on the road in a hostile environment, although we know the faithful travel incredibly well, but when you're on the road, I think you just can't give the other team extra possessions. So if Jimmy can play a clean game, no turnovers there. Last but not least, we're going to have to see, hopefully whether it's Ambry Thomas, but if the other cornerback who's going to be out there starting, really, if they can just play solid, not give up the big play, then I really do like our chances to come away with a win. Um, I haven't thought as much about the Atlanta game just as yet. I have to take a really deep dive into their roster, how they've been performing statistically. But that the Falcons, they're going to be coming out angry because they were not happy. And we all know what happened against the Buccaneers with that awful call to roughing the passer. So the Falcons are going to try and take it out on us. Now, we have the physicality where we're going to throw it right back at them. But here's the thing. The Atlanta Falcons are going to be playing angry because they're going to feel like they could have come back and won that game against Tampa. So we have to be ready. We have to be ready to take their best shot because what they're going to be hearing all week long, the 49ers defense. So they're going to be coming out and taking their best shot to put up some points on us. So if the defense can keep doing its thing, offense, clean game from Jimmy, get the run game going, but and then just no crazy, dumb special teams plays. And then I think we're in good shape to come away with a win.
Yeah, I agree. Now, I personally myself, I am not afraid of the Falcons whatsoever. You mentioned Kyle Pitts. He's been playing trashy. He's been playing terrible.
Really?
Kyle Pitts. Oh, yeah. He's a no factor so far. Now, can this be the game where he breaks out? I hope not. But I think we have the depth in our corners, inside corners to take care of him. The only breakout player that has been so far has been the rookie receiver, Drake London. He's been good. But then they don't have nobody else besides him. So if we put Mooney on Drake London, who else is Atlanta going to throw to? Pitts hasn't done nothing. So I'm not worried. This would be the perfect time to kind of get maybe a Jason Verrett acclimated to the roster, or to get confidence to Ambry Thomas type of game. Now, one thing I do say, we do got to contain and make sure that Mariota does not kill us with his legs. He's not going to kill us with his arm because he has no playmakers to throw it to. But if we don't contain him, and he gets he converts those third downs, short third downs into first down with his legs. We don't want that, so we got to make sure we can contain him. And their running game is not good. They're down to their second, like you said, Patterson has been hurt, and he's been their top running back. They have this other guy that I forgot his name. He's not that good, and we're great against the run, so we're going to make them one-dimensional right off the bat. They don't have nobody to throw to but London. Kyle Pitts has been not even up and down. He's just been down. Now, he's still a great player as a person, so you don't know. But I doubt it. He's going to just really break out in this game. So this as long as we don't turn it over on offense, as long as Jimmy doesn't make crucial mistakes and hurts our defense, if Jimmy can play the way he played against Carolina, we're going to kill the Falcons. I just don't, and people say, well, they play Tampa Bay close. Tampa Bay can't throw the ball. Tom Brady's been struggling, even though they have great receivers. They haven't been airing the ball very well over there in Tampa. Jimmy has actually been playing pretty decent with Ayuk, and they don't have that explosive receiver like Ayuk right now. Even though they have Evans and Godway, but if we don't self-destruct, and if we play a clean game from the pocket next week, we should win this game pretty easily. Our defense is just, even without Emmanuel Mosley, even without Bosa, this team should win this easily, double digit. If you think the Carolina game was bad, This game should be much worse for Atlanta. But again, no self-inflicted wounds, and we will be great. So we will definitely come back next week. We will talk about the Atlanta and Niner game, and we'll recap what happened, and we'll break down the things that we saw individually. You'll get my side of it. You'll get Kalen's side of it. So tune in. But most importantly, do us a favor. If you enjoy this show, hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed. If you're watching on my channel, subscribe. If you're watching on Kalen's channel, subscribe to him. And if you're not part of Shifty's 49ers Talk, what's wrong with you? Go over there and subscribe to the channel quickly. If you're one of his guests watching this and you come and subscribe to mine, I would appreciate that. Kalen, it's been another fun recap show with you. I'm enjoying this with you this year, man. We're going to continue to get this going. Let people know about the 49ers weekly recap. Share it, put it on Twitter, put it on Instagram, word of mouth. Hey, guys, have you guys checked out the 49ers weekly recap? No? Go and check it out. You can watch it on the Niners Sickness podcast, or you can watch it on Shifty's Niners Talk. But go and check it out. Kalen, it's been another great week. We have the dub, victory, 2 in a row. We're trending in the right direction. Let's get the third one against Atlanta. I will see you next Tuesday, my friend. Anything you want to say before we go?
Yeah, last but not least, and thank you for the shout outs there, Beto. And yeah, anyone who watches, he does a lot of great work, a lot of great stuff, a lot of great streams. He goes live consistently. He knows his stuff. He's a diehard fan. So if you haven't already, if you're watching on my channel, do go to Niner Sickness Podcast, subscribe. And for these shows here, leave some comments as well. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on what, our opinions, some opinions that you have that maybe whether you agree or disagree. It's always good to have those discussions in the comments. Always some of my favorite things, really, and that's my favorite thing about when I do like the stream, is just having the engagement with the fans too, and people who are just as passionate, if not more passionate, about the team. And yeah, check it out. It's a good time. We're going to be doing this all year long. It's going to be a fun year. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, but hopefully you guys will join us along the way. And yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, and to add real quick to your point, Kalen, is in the comments, please if there's anything you would like us to add to the show, or things that you think that our show can be better, please leave those in the comments. We would love to review them, and we'll look at it. We'll discuss it amongst ourselves. And if it's a great idea, you never know. We just might run with it. So your idea might just be part of the show, but you'll never know unless you leave that in the comments. So leave those in the comments. Me and Kalen will review it, and you never know. Maybe your idea pops up on our next show. With that said, my friend, God bless you. Have a great day, and we'll see you on the next podcast. Peace.